Alright folks, we're going to be doing another video. I've been looking forward to doing this one, and we're going to be taking this beautiful machine.
Oh cool, road trip. Let me grab my leathers and helmet. Greetings, dear viewers, and welcome to another episode of No Sacred Cows.
And now for something completely different.
Today we are going to take a long road trip with a funny Christian YouTube vlogger and fellow motorcycle enthusiast, Rich Garcia, who goes by the handle of Shockofgod, and discuss his beliefs that atheism and atheists are delusional. Rich's source video is over 42 minutes long and covers a number of points, which would make this video far too long to watch. So I'm going to break it up into a number of episodes, and I will edit out the parts where he just rambles on about whatever. If you wish to see his full video, there is a link to it in the description. Plus, I will be using a different format than normal this time, and we'll be using some unused footage of a ride I did a couple years back through the Sunshine Coast of BC. Now, Rich recorded his video using a GoPro mounted on his helmet, same as I did, and the audio, quite frankly, sucks. There is a lot of wind noise, rattles, traffic noise, and the like, making it a bit hard to hear what he has to say, and to say the least, it's a bit annoying. I, on the other hand, will be muting the audio on my writing scenes and replacing them with some decent writing tunes playing on the background, and I'll have my commentary laid over top. I think this should work. Anyways, put on your boots and leathers, boys and girls, buckle down your skid lids, and let's ride.
Alright folks, we're going to be doing another video. I've been looking forward to doing this one, and we're going to be taking this beautiful machine, which is the product of intelligent design. Now,
that is one sweet ride, a Valentino Rossi R1 replica. Anyways, here's mine, a 98 Triumph Trophy 1200 Sport Touring machine. And unlike yours, it was not puffed into existence by a sky daddy fiddling around with intelligent design and magical incantations, but rather it was intelligently engineered over the past 100 or so years, from this, to this, then this, and then this, to what I'm writing today. I believe there's a word for such incremental improvements and change over time. Now, what the fuck was it again? All right! Evolution! And since my machine was engineered and manufactured, the trophy has evolved further into this. It's a bit big and bulky for my taste, but still nice. And I am sure we will be revisiting evolution somewhere in the course of our travels together, so I will leave it here for now.
Now, what would you say if I asked you this riddle? If I said that there was a massive explosion and we put all the pieces of this motorcycle within that massive explosion, and after the explosion happened, this motorcycle popped out, finely tuned with the oil within the motorcycle, the gasoline, the tires just happened to be in the right position. Would you say I was crazy to believe that? If your answer is yes, then you must also say that atheists are crazy to believe that a massive explosion, the Big Bang, happened, and over billions and billions of years, you and I were formed. Okay, so it's just madness to think that a massive chaotic explosion occurred, and then over billions of years, due to luck and chance, no design, you were formed.
Christ on a crutch, Rich. You haven't even fired up your engine at the streets yet. and you have already committed the logical equivalent of a high side and splattered yourself all over the pavement. I mean, really? The explosion in a junkyard argument? That has been so utterly debunked and ridiculed that even Ken Ham and Kent Hovind won't go near it. And those two shameless assholes will say or do anything to make a buck or two off their well-pleased clocks. No one in their right mind believes that it is even remotely possible for an explosion to assemble a fully functional motorcycle. And your question is, at best, a logical fallacy, as you are confusing and combining three distinct and separate things. 1. The Big Bang, or how the universe began. 2. Abiogenesis, or how simple self-replicating compounds, aka life, came into being from inorganic matter. And 3. Evolution, which is the study of how simple self-replicating compounds such as amino acids changed and grew into the complex life forms we know today over a vast amount of time. However, you stated that it is madness to believe in any of these three. And yet, how is it any more mad to believe in them than it is to believe in that some magical sky wizard uttered a magical incantation or 7 and poofed the entire universe, including you and me, into being, just because apparently he had nothing better to do and was feeling a bit lonely. On my side of the argument, I have reams and reams of peer-reviewed papers, centuries of direct observations, hundreds of thousands of experiments, and retesting of those experiments, an incalculable amount of calculations, and thousands of minds throughout the ages who are much more capable and greater than you and I could ever hope to be, backing up my beliefs in science and rationalism. You, on the other hand, have a single, heavily edited, and compiled book of fairy tales that is little more than a translation of a translation of a translation of a translation of the oral stories from a bunch of Bronze Age illiterate sheep-shagging desert raiders. And many of those fables have been completely ripped off and plagiarized from the fables of earlier civilizations, including the flood myth, and yes, even the Christ story. And here's the biggest difference between our two camps. My camp is never satisfied. We know we do not have all the answers to all the questions. We also know that for every answer we do get, it's just going to generate more questions. And when we discover new evidence that disproves a long-established fact, we do not just ignore it and hope it goes away, or try to find a workaround. No, we incorporate that new evidence into our model, and if need be, throw out the old model completely and build a new one. We value truth above all, and when it comes to truth, there are no sacred cows. Your camp, on the other hand, believes that it has all the answers, and that those answers can be found in your book of plagiarized fairy tales. The one where serpents and donkeys can speak, and where we're all descended from a man fucking his female clone. Talk about the ultimate incest story. And any evidence or facts that run contrary to your beliefs are to be at best ignored or at worst attacked. If we all believed as you do that all knowledge is to be found in that one heavily retracted book, then you and I would not be having this conversation, nor would we be tooling around on our two-wheeled machines. Instead, we would be living in the Bronze Age, picking out fleas from our hair, and most likely dying by the time we were 30. So please, tell me again, which one of us is mad and delusional?
Well, when you look at how complex this motorcycle is, and we're going to be taking the motorcycle on the freeway right now and also on the streets, we are going to be doing a fun video. Check this out. Now, I want to show you something. Here's the topics of today. We're going to be debunking, and let's get the motorcycle started. We're going to be debunking about 10 atheist arguments why they reject God and why they say there's no God, etc. Number one, I just have a little, I don't have all this memorized, but I have 10 topics here. We're going to talk about how atheists say there's no evidence of God. We're going to talk about their objection using evolution. Oh wait, let's start this here. We're going to talk about how they say there's so many different gods and religions over history. We're going to talk about how they say a universe came from nothing. We'll talk about the fine-tuning of the universe. We're going to talk about those atheists that actually claim Jesus never existed. We're going to talk about these atheists that say there's no such thing as free will. Your mind just guides you around like a zombie. I should say, they say your brain just tells your mind what to do and guides you around like a zombie. Notice the Bible condemns gays. We're going to talk about how they say they reject God because the Bible condemns gays. We're going to talk about how they say God did evil things in the Bible, and throughout history they say that, which I don't understand why they say that, because how could God even do anything if they're trying to claim he doesn't exist? But, you know, they don't say things that are rational, these atheists. And then, of course, contradictions in the Bible. So I want to show you something. That's all I have, is those little talking points. We have nothing up our sleeves. We're doing this totally by memory. So let's put this in gear and let's get on this motorcycle that just popped into existence out of a massive chaotic explosion. Oh, wait a minute. That would be the atheist claim.
Well, Rich, that is a pretty impressive list of things to get through, especially in a 42-minute video. And you've already wasted over 3 minutes. You better twist that throttle hard if you wish to catch up with the rest of us. And no, the puffing into existence of your motorcycle is not an atheist claim, but rather, it is what you claim happened when your God puffed life, the universe, and everything into existence with a magical incantation or something. Let's speed things up, shall we? He's rambling.
Let's start off with the first one on our list, where atheists say there's no evidence for the existence of God. And then we're getting on, gotta get some air in here. Woo! We're getting on the high-speed, evil freeways of California over here.
Finally, we're getting to the meat of the subject. Oh wait, fuck it. Now he's going off topic, commenting about a crazy lady shouting at a plant, some minor fender bender, and how fucking hot it is. Does he suffer from ADD? Anyways, I'm going to cut to a point where he gets back on subject.
Before we get into debunking the claim how atheists say there's no evidence for God's existence, let's talk about the way atheists think versus the way Christians think. And if this is your first time to this YouTube channel, I have to tell you in full disclosure, I used to be an atheist. And one of the main reasons why I left atheism was the lack, L-A-C-K, the lack of evidence for atheism. I could find no proof and evidence that atheism was accurate and correct.
Bullshit. Given how little knowledge you have demonstrated on atheism, I doubt very much you ever were one. Or perhaps, as some of the atheist community seem to think, you really are an atheist, but one who is trolling other atheists for some reason or another. Personally, I feel you're full of bullshit and have been a theist for your entire life. It's at this point, dear viewers, that he gets distracted by the minor fender bender, so we shall now skip ahead again.
Back to the issue at hand. The way that Christians think is like this, okay? We don't think like atheists, we actually use reason and logic. What an atheist focuses on is a presuppositional belief that God does not exist, okay? And then what they do is they try to come up with just a way to reject whatever you say, okay? And I noticed this when I was an atheist. No atheist has any good arguments against God's existence. But Christians have very good evidence and excellent arguments they use in debate for God's existence. But the atheist has focused on rejecting things. But what a Christian does, and this is what you should do if you're an atheist too. Of course, you wouldn't be an atheist if you thought this way, like I'm going to tell you. What you should do is be honest and don't approach God or atheism with your presuppositional opinions that God does not exist, because then your whole mentality is just rejecting, and it doesn't take any skill or intelligence to reject evidence, and that's...
Wow. Just wow. Atheists use presupposition and reject evidence out of hand just so they can deny the existence of God? Fuck me up the arse with a carrot. No, son, the use of presupposition and the rejection of evidence out of hand are the hallmarks of the theist camp, not the atheist camp. Christian apologists such as Ray Comfort, Ken Ham, Kent Hovind, and Cy 10, not to be confused with fellow Canadian and satirist Cy 10 atheists, all admit to and encourage their followers to use presupposition arguments and to reject out of hand any evidence that is presented to them that brings into question their faith or what is written in their little black book of ancient fables when debating atheists. And as for atheists being lazy, that's pure bullshit, and as you well know. Many atheists on YouTube, such as Aaron Raw, Armored Skeptic, Telltale Atheist, Rorschach Justice, and Dusty Miller, just to name a few, were at one time practicing, or at least came from, a strong Christian background, who, while suffering a crisis of faith, researched into the existence of God, hoping to find at least one tiny shred of evidence to justify their faith, and they came up empty. I recommend watching Finite Atheist's Deconversion series to see in detail just how time-consuming and heart-rending this process can be. Links are in the description. And here's the rub, Rich. Most atheists are willing to accept the existence of a God, if it can be demonstrated that one actually exists. And for that we demand evidence. Cold, hard, verifiable, undeniable, measurable, falsifiable, empirical evidence. And up to this point in time, all evidence presents points to the non-existence of God, or at least, if there is a God, it is one that takes no active part in the universe. Basically, an entity that has abandoned its creation to its own devices once it was created. Also, the so-called God of the Gaps is slowly running out of places to reside as science evicts him from one hidey hole after another as we gain a greater understanding to the true nature of the universe and fill those gaps with empirical and verifiable scientific knowledge. You see, unlike theists who will reject evidence out of hand when it brings their beliefs into question or runs contrary to what is in their holy book, atheists for the most part will embrace and accept any factual evidence, even when it runs contrary to or disproves a cherished belief or theory. It is the atheist, not the theist, who values truth above all else, and quite rightly will reject out of hand that which cannot be proven. And it is the theist camp that presupposes God exists. So it's up to the theist to prove that existence. In fact, you have two missions, not one. First, you must prove without a shadow of a doubt that God actually exists. Once you have done that, you now must prove that said God is actually the one you believe in, which I believe is going to be an even harder and more impossible task to complete than even proving God actually exists. And sadly for you and your fellow cultists, the Bible does not count as proof of either God's actual existence or that the God in your book is the real God. There are many active religions being practiced in the world today, and all of them have their own holy books, each claiming that God contained within their pages is the correct God, and that the words contained in those books come directly from God or the gods, and that all others are false and created to mislead the faithful. Hinduism has been practiced in one form or another for almost 17,000 years, and its 1.16 billion believers, that's 60% of the world's population, have the Bhagavad Gita as their holy book. Can you prove that they are wrong and you are correct? Then there is Judaism, which has been around for about 11 centuries and is currently practiced by about 15 million people. While they share many of the same Old Testament stories in the Torah, they reject the New Testament and are more than a little pissed about how you, Christians and Muslims, have appropriated their God and bastardized them. Again, can you prove that they don't have the correct goods on this fellow God? Let's not forget Buddhism. It's been around for almost as long as Judaism and is currently practiced by around 10% of the world's population. That's two of the world's greatest non-Abrahamic religions that got their start in India and are practiced today by over 25% of the world's population. Prove to me that they are wrong and you are correct. And let's not forget the fastest growing religion in the world, Islam, the newest member of the Abrahamic religions. Started in the 7th century of the Common Era and now practiced by approximately 1.6 billion people around the world. The Quran, while rejecting Christ as the Messiah, does acknowledge him as one of the great prophets, keeping company with those of the Old Testament, such as Moses and Abraham. Again, can you prove that they are incorrect and you are not? Can you now see the scope of the problem you're facing? You make claims that God exists and that your version of God is the correct one. And when we say fine, show us the evidence and the proof, you come up empty, because basically you have none, nada, bugger all. And when we attempt to show you evidence that brings into question your God's existence, you either dismiss it out of hand, or you shut your eyes, stick your fingers in your ears, and go, la 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 la, I can't hear you, la 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 la. The burden of proof is on you, boy, so pony up and show me what you got, because so far you have shown me sweet fuck all. Oh, and man up and take ownership of the fact that when it comes to presupposition and the denial of evidence, those are the hallmarks of the theist, not the atheist. Well, folks, I'm going to end it here for now, as he rattles on and off topic about his first point for a bit, and I really can't be arsed to deal with it. If you want to see the entire video, the link is in the description, but be warned, you will want to watch it in small chunks, otherwise you might be tempted to put your fists through your monitor. I will release episode 2 of our ride shortly, once I regain the strength to go through the rest of his video. In the meantime, take care, keep the sunny side up and the sticky side down. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Or else, when you least expect it,